great to be on set again today on our program, Kukuza Africa, where we are very passionate about examining, analyzing the sub-Saharan African socio-economic issues. And through this program, we essentially wish to put across research information that will be sufficient to influence the proper development and implementation of policies across the 46 sub-Saharan African states. Today we're looking at the ease and challenges of doing business in sub-Saharan Africa, a very important topic that I believe so much is crucial to the development of businesses in sub-Saharan Africa. And with me today is a very good friend, Mr. Dunwell Eku. He is a fund manager, a skills development fund international master trainer at UNCTAD, and also a consultant, a management consultant, speaker, and management trainer of repute across the sub-Saharan African states. It's great to have you with us today again, Donald.
Pleased to be here.
Yeah.
Pleased to be here.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
and thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
Now, getting into our discussion right away, a particular study seems to indicate, or rather indicate, that doing business in sub-Saharan African states with an estimated population of 1.2 billion persons is relevant for economic development among the sub-Saharan African states, because it is positively associated with a multitude of economic development components such as wealth creation and sharing, opportunities of employment, balanced economic and regional prosperity, exports, standards of living, gross domestic product, GDP, and GDP per capita. However, in comparison with other regions of the world, the sub-Saharan continent is lagging in all these characteristics, which reflects inherent challenges to doing business in the subcontinent that are limiting entrepreneurship and conducive business environments needed for investment and economic advancement. Now, Don, we're looking at this study. What would you really, say, giving an overview about the state of doing business in the 46 sub-Saharan African states?
Well, once again, thank you for having me. It's very interesting, the preamble that you just gave. Let me say this, that things were looking very positive. Indeed, the African Development Bank projected GDP growth for 2019-2020 of 3.6 for the subcontinent. And then COVID struck and took us down, and everything went out of joint. But even so, they are still projecting that there will be a rebound back to 3%. Okay, so it's not all gloom, but we are saddled with this heavy reliance on commodity trade, agri products as a continent. Largely, that's what all our exports are in that area. But not only that, we still import capital goods, which means we do not have the capacity to manufacture our own capital goods, which is the produced means for production. And so we're having to rely on imports for capital goods. Not just that, we are importing food products outside of the continent. A lot of rice, a lot of, name it, cooking oils and all sort of things that we import outside of the continent. And so it is not surprising, as I always say, our global trade volume is still under 3% as a continent compared to all the other nations. And many of our countries still rely on the extractives, which is the minerals that we are endowed with. And you know the problems that are associated with that. We've had years of exploiting the extractives that, for whatever reason, has not given us the benefit that should have accrued to us. And that's one of our problems. And then again, if you look at the intra-African trade amongst ourselves, we are doing this below the potential that we have. In fact, just about 17% of the trade volumes we are doing elsewhere. But that potential still exists. So in as much as we have things that are going against us as a result of some inaction and so on, indecision and so on, and instabilities that have bedeviled our development generally, there are some positives that this subcontinent has. And we can look to those positives if we do the right thing.
That is exactly what Kukuza Africa is all about. More or less changing the African narratives. And as much as we know we have issues or problems, so to say, we know that we also have the resource base, both human, financial, and technological resource to turn our story around. So it's great to know that, yes, we recognize what the issues are, but we have, more or less the solutions at our fingertips. Now, in looking at the various economic liberalizations and the implementation of policies, which were designed definitely to improve doing business conditions in Sub-Sahara Africa, how would you, currently rate the performance of private businesses when you take into consideration the fact that our GDP per capita, is still abysmal, compared to other trading blocks and other continents in the world? Definitely, we're not doing, wonderfully well. What would you say is the state of private business, as an entity or as different entities, in the subcontinent, looking at, all the effort made previously, to bring about economic liberalization, and the rest of the attempts made by, various governments?
Yeah, you're right. If you look at where we have come from, for most of countries after independence, most of the development that took place were state-led. Okay. And for a long time, as a policy for most of the countries, the state took the commanding heights in bringing about development. Some actually were unfavorable for private sector development. They did not consider, and famously, if you look at what Kwame Nkrumah did in Ghana, there was a time he was totally averse to private sector development. He wanted the state to, and so countries that looked after us, looked up to us, as in Ghana, also went on the same trajectory. But by and large, it became obvious that the state couldn't do this, right, because there were problems that confronted us, and so private sector took over. But there are lingering, call it hangover, okay, of the state institutions that should support private sector-led initiatives. that operate with the same mentality, first of the colonial mentality. Okay, the colonial,
It's like some inherited traits.
some inherited colonial thing, and then the trajectory of the state-led development. So you don't find some of these institutions being business-like in the way they do things. The customs officer or the district administration officer who looks at enterprises is supposed to see them as partners in development, not come with a club as policing, which was the mode that was available. I mean, that was given to us by the colonials. And then, because if you remember, I remember very well that the local gin, there was a time when it was called illicit. Okay, it was illicit because people were manufacturing it and brewing in the dark. And the police then will look at anybody who is manufacturing this so-called illicit thing with an attitude. Now, today we know that if they did that and upgraded that product, it could well serve for industry and other
great export potential.
Potential. Okay, so the institutions, your FDAs, that is Food and Drug Authorities, and Registrar Generals, and all of them have an attitude of policing instead of partnership with the private sector. So the private sector is pushing, is doing its bit, and today you can say confidently that yes, for most countries, the private sector seems to be emerging, but there are still issues to do with the regulatory frame and all of that.
You know, I mean, from what you've said, we can actually see where some of these initial constraints have come from. And what that means essentially is that we have a situation on our hands where lots of training will supposedly be required to assist even the government agencies, even the operators of private businesses to do, you know, their businesses in contemporary ways, to do their businesses in with modern applications as much as possible. Yeah. So now, when we look at this as, you know, as a background of, you know, where we are today doing business in Sub-Sahara Africa, how would you consider, you know, the cost of doing business, legal conditions of, you know, starting a business and running a business, you know, in Sub-Sahara Africa? I mean, I know you're quite experienced, having worked in some other parts of the world, you know, in South America, you know, in Europe and South Africa, of course. You obviously would have interacted, you know, on very close basis with, you know, the fundamentals of starting a business, the cost of running businesses, and the rest, you know, like. So what would you say, how do we compare to such areas in the world? You know, when we talk about the cost of doing business and also the legal conditions, you know, attached to most of it.
Yeah, so you have the likes of, I'll quickly run us through the, let me say top 5 or top 10 problem areas where we are looking at constraints to doing business that has been identified. And starting with, you rightly mentioned, starting and registering a business. There's some improvement, but it is still lengthy and costly because in some places you spend so much time to do that. Also getting construction permits. You know, you want to put up a warehouse or something, a factory shell to do your operations, and getting a permit is still problematic on our continent. It's taking a lot of time. In fact, South Africa has 13 different procedures. 13 different procedures, and it's taking as much as 127 days to get that permit for construction. And then there are others. Ghana, as for Ghana, it's a different story. I mean, even when you've gotten the permit, somebody will just come and spray some paint and say, stop work, because they are looking for something other than what they should be doing. So that's when starting getting construction permit, connecting electrical power, just electricity to your site. Okay. Now, if where electricity is available, most industrial concerns are outside of the main zones, which means that electrical power must be supplied. And there are instances where companies are having to even pay for transformers. Yeah. Okay, which is a cost that the private sector person is not supposed to incur such a cost, because as soon as that transformer is mounted, it's no longer theirs. Yeah. The electricity company then comes in to take it over and can distribute power from there to any other person. Yeah. So that's a cost that, and so connecting electrical power, registering property itself is also another. And then, of course, the huge one, obtaining credit, and the issues to do with investor protection. I mean, if you want people to invest in your country, then it must be that they are also protected in one way or the other. I know that quite a number of African countries have signed on to the World Bank's, they call it the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Association, which is a facility that if a country joins, it paints the picture for an investor that, yes, when something comes, it will be solved. Okay.
You know what, Dunwell, let's go for a break here.
Okay.
And when we get back, we'll actually continue from where you stopped now.
All right.
Thank you, viewers. Welcome back from a short break. Before we went on break, Mr. Dunwell Eku was giving us a very, very incisive look into what constitutes the cost of doing business in Sub-Saharan Africa. He's mentioned quite a couple of issues. I just want him to continue from where he stopped, and then we're actually going to look at what are the reasons behind these administrative bottlenecks. Mr. Dunwell.
Thank you. So just as I was saying, these are areas of concern for anybody who is investing and can add to their cost, which will not necessarily contribute to what they want to do. So clearly, an investor wants to be assured that their investment will not be taken over by the state or some other. So countries that sign on to the mega multilateral investment guarantee scheme of the World Bank is positive, and quite a number of African countries have done that. But even trading across our borders is also a huge issue, although the advent of the Continental Free Trade Agreement, which has just been signed, is a way out for us, but it's an issue that we cannot overlook. And enforcing contracts. Yeah. Enforcing contracts between, and then
when you say enforcing contracts, are you talking about enforcing contracts within the countries or across borders?
Yes, within countries and across borders, because there are different regimes, legal regimes that are in operation. And this has the tendency to drag such issues.
Let me interject at this point.
Yeah.
The issues you've mentioned are very fundamental to the outcome of our businesses in Sub-Sahara Africa. Having had a stint in Europe to see how things work, I equally share the view with you that some of our processes are unduly bogged down by administrative bottlenecks. What, in your opinion, should or can be done to rescue sub-Saharan African businesses from this stranglehold which we are all experiencing? Because at the end of the day, the average sub-Saharan African business is a great contributor to GDP. So, what do you think must be done? Let us out of this.
The member countries that constitute this, thankfully we have the AU. Apart from the AU, we have the regional blocks.
Can we recognize those regional blocks? We have ECOWAS, we have the COMESA, we have the economic of the East African states,
yes.
And then of course we have SADC.
Yeah,
okay. Of the South.
These are regional blocks that before the advent of the current AU were in operation, trying to get the nation states in those regions to come together to do business, basically, and agree on some basic tenets and ways of doing business, come to tariffs and all those things. Now, yes, those blocks are still there, but we still have problems that are infrastructure in nature. For instance, you look at just trading across borders. It is not just tariff. It is, are you able to drive from Accra to Cairo and down to Cape Town and back to Accra? It is, in the current state, it is important. It will take you so long. It's a task. Just the road network, the rail networks, and then the sheer presence of border controls, numerous border controls, some illegal, some legal.
So in effect, our distribution of goods and services is almost non-existent.
Yeah, you can't do that, and this is what the Continental Free Trade Agreement is trying to, and then they've outlined some of these things that can be done. For instance, I was talking to you just before we came. I was talking to you about the Lagos corridor, Accra, Côte d'Ivoire, Lagos corridor, which is supposed to pave the way for goods and services to just move across at least these nations on this corridor.
Yeah.
Okay, from Lagos to Côte d'Ivoire, and a lot of money has been invested in preliminary studies, design, and so on. It hasn't gone, and I believe that each country has a portion that they are supposed to do in that. It hasn't taken off. So even though we've signed the Continental Free Trade Agreement, this bottleneck needs to be taken off. And whatever investment that we need to make in that, just transportation to allow goods and services to move freely, and to agree the common tariffs, which is also an issue that is being discussed. So in the area, and I just said we were doing just 17% of the potential within Africa. Everybody is looking
between ourselves.
Between ourselves.
Just 17% of our trade.
Yes. The volume of the trade
we do is between ourselves.
Yes, just
so
17.
the other
83%
is with the outside world.
Outside world.
At greater cost.
At greater cost, because they have non-tariff barriers that it's not even about the cost. It's just non-tariff barriers that make sure that you are not bringing just anything there. And those things are difficult to meet because they rely on our regulators and skills and training and understanding of those issues, quality issues and things like that. So we in as much as we are trading with other nations to the level of 80-something%, not to say that if we trade amongst ourselves we should let down our guards and let everything be sold in like manner if we will try and improve the way we do business, just so that we can meet the demands of the Western importers. We might as well do same for ourselves across continent, which will make it cheaper.
Now, you see, you see something, Noel. I just want to stop you again, because we're going to be talking about capital mobilization very soon.
Yeah.
And the constraints we have, as sub-Saharan African businesses, to mobilize capital for our businesses.
Yeah.
Now, you talked about, difficulty in obtaining credit.
Yeah.
You talked about the state of our electricity.
Yes.
I mean, the fact that, sometimes getting access to electric power is, such a Herculean task, especially for businesses.
Yeah.
And I know I've seen many people experience, that difficulty, in trying to get their companies or factories
Yes.
attached to national grids in some sub-Saharan African countries.
That's right.
You also talked about, the issue of registration of businesses. You talked about construction permits, and the investor confidence, required to encourage businesses, to flow in this part of the world. Now, the question I want to ask again is this: what can be done? Because I just want to assume that for whatever it takes, it's human beings that are in the process or in the various processes that we experience these bottlenecks. So what can be done to ensure that by any stroke of luck, you and I can register our businesses in max, 2 days? We can get our building permits in max, another 2 days, and probably want to do something, in manufacturing. We'll get all the, required permits, and under a week, we've started business, having, gotten the cooperation of either the banks, or any lending institution that we go to. What can be done? Because we need to place our finger on the solution to this very trying situation we find ourselves.
Yeah, I think that the awareness of the existence of this, having been able to even identify what is it that is the stumbling block in itself is one. But then, like you rightly say, that we need to then remove these bottlenecks.
Yeah.
And first of all, I would say that institutions must be made to work.
Good.
Institutions across our nations must be aware of the damage this is causing us, and therefore they should be up to speed with whatever they do. That the customs institutions, the food and drug administrations, or standards boards, as some will call it, the highway authorities, and all of that, and to say that it started because there are some plans that have been put in place. I was talking about the road network. There is a realization that we need to, if we are going to integrate, our road network must be done, and investment has been made into feasibility studies for the Senegal Gambia corridor, the Lagos Abidjan corridor. There's another one, it doesn't come to mind easily. They've done studies, they've put money in. What is stopping us from carrying out? Because we know this is something we need. Okay, but you can be sure that one of the problems we've had is our political musical chairs, that when one party leaves the scene and the other comes, the programs that are drawn out for the nation sometimes get stalled because the other party that is coming in perhaps is not interested in this. But this is something that I think it should be done at the AU level, okay? thankfully, the World Bank, the what do you call it? The Global Competitiveness Index that is measured there. These indices are thrown out as some kind of competition to see where a nation stands. So if you look at, as Ghana, if we look at the Global Competitiveness Index, and we were 14 out of 150 nations.
Yeah.
Now anybody sees us, they know that we're not doing too well. If you come to the World Bank's doing business indices, which is also across all the nations. So apart from these things that are measuring how we are doing, we should be eager ourselves to want to showcase the best. Okay, that there are measurements that are looking at how the things that stops us from being competitive, stops businesses from freely operating and at reduced cost and so on. So one, institutions must be made to work. There must be this awareness, but it should be taken at the level of the African Union in the policies that they stipulate, and it must be demanded that the next time we meet, we are reviewing okay, where we stood the last time and where we've gone to and so on. These are things that must
So
be
that will be
demanded.
more or less determining what we might call convergence points.
Exactly.
For various countries,
Yeah, exactly.
you know, and stating emphatically or, you know, giving certain guidelines as to periods and times in which certain transactions must be concluded,
Yes.
you know, and the rest like.
Yes.
That, I think, you know, will be a great way of starting it.
Okay.
Though when I look at the in quotes economic blocks we have in Africa, Sub-Sahara Africa particularly, I seem to see them more in the mood of political blocks rather than, you know, economic blocks. Because what I observe is that, you know, it's more about politics than, you know, any other thing. You know. So, but we'll just take a break at this point again, and then when we get back, we'll take on the issue of mobilization of finance, you know, for business. Thank you. Viewers, we'll be back after the break. Hello viewers, you're welcome back from our break. And just before we went on break, Mr. Eku was giving us an insight into the issue of the multiplicity of institutions, roles and functions as one of the reasons behind the increased or high cost of doing business in Sub-Sahara Africa. So, Dunwell, how do you think this can be solved immediately?
Yeah, we need to integrate. We need to integrate in that currently we know that African Continental Free Trade Agreement, the Secretariat is sited in Ghana, but it's catering for all the countries in the Sub-Saharan Africa. And we can do likewise for some of the institutions that we can, for instance, decide that when it comes to quality of products, Food and Drugs Authority, we can have one of the trade blocks, maybe Southern Africa, or maybe the Commercial region or the East African bloc, as the hub where this happens. If we did that, again, it would strengthen the institutions, because then there is cross-national expertise that can be garnered. Yeah. Okay. Across board into those institutions, and it will make them stronger. It allows for that. It allows for that. So when we do that, I think that it will help. It is also to look at, just as we were talking about that, we're having difficulty trading across borders because the products that are manufactured in the individual countries are almost similar.
Okay.
Okay. Name it what Nigeria has, Ghana has, the same products all over the place. So if I have to trade with Nigeria or Togo for that matter, then they must be producing something that I don't have as a Ghanaian national or as a Ghanaian business, and so on. So we need to also look at making use of what I'll describe as the competitive advantages that other nations have.
Yeah.
Can the Southern African perhaps look at our steel needs? Can Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana look at everything cocoa?
Yeah.
Can Nigeria look at everything gas
Yeah.
and oil?
Yeah.
I mean, that sort of thing. Can Kenya look at horticultural products and so on and so forth? We need to look at these competitive advantages that the individual nations have or the blocks may have to spare the development. That in itself.
If you ask me, Dunwell, I will think that on a larger note, talking about similarity of products, you might be referring to products made by the multinationals.
All right.
Because at the lower strata, we seem to also have a diversity of products, which are coming out of the various businesses set up by sub-Saharan companies, as the case may be, right? But in appreciation of what you've just said, I'm just trying to look at, what effect a very crucial issue you just mentioned, which is obtaining credit.
Yeah.
That's cost of capital.
That's cost of capital.
I mean, the kind of rates we hear in this part of the world, I mean, it leaves a lot to be desired.
Yeah.
We talk about cost of capital, then we talk about corporate taxes and personal taxes also. Taxes are high.
Yeah.
Cost of capital is high.
Yeah.
How does the average sub-Saharan African business survive in such, an environment? We'll talk about infrastructure shortly, but how do we survive?
Yeah, it's a Herculean task, but also to say that there's a background to that. There's a background to that. I have a friend who often says that money is not the issue; it's the distribution.
Okay.
So there is out there is capital looking for projects.
Good.
Okay.
And when you say out there, where would you mean?
Outside of sub-Saharan Africa.
Good.
And even within, there is capital, some sort of capital looking for investment. But what is happening is that those kinds of funds are looking for big infrastructure investments.
Okay.
And they want to secure sovereign guarantees.
Yeah.
Already, the nations are overexposed in terms of debt.
Debt already.
And, already. So if you are asking them for this, it's going to be a problem. So even though there isn't a lack for some sort of capital, okay, the mechanics that go with it and the demands that go with it doesn't make a lot of countries able to secure those capitals, especially the fact that they are already overexposed and so on and so forth. But if you look at not only that, what the ordinary business person needs is patient capital. Okay, they are not looking for short term, which is the overdraft and so on, which is what is on offer by most of the institutions. But we can't blame them.
In Sub-Sahara Africa?
In Sub-Saharan Africa.
Okay.
Because where are they getting the money? They are getting from the money from others who are also investing short term. So if the people who put the money in the banks are investing short terms, where are they going to take the money?
So we find ourselves in a situation where those who save in Sub-Saharan Africa, so to say, are short-term savers.
Short-term savers.
And
largely
they are short-term savers.
Yes.
So we don't have long-term cash in
Yes.
the money in the system.
Yes.
And something which is quite intriguing, is observable in our financial systems. And that is the fact that our money market instruments make more returns than our capital market instruments. Now, in an economy where the money market makes more money than the capital market, I had a boss some years ago who said to me that such an economy is standing on its head. So basically, it's just a clear indication to the fact that there is no long-term money in the system.
No.
You see, because people are more interested in putting their monies in the money market, and getting quick returns than going to the
the bonds, the bonds and things like that.
So we have that situation on our hands, and we have it's a paucity of funds, and then at the same time difficulty in attracting required capital. Added to that is the issue of the corporate taxes. Across board in Sub-Sahara Africa, you hear people complain a lot about, high taxes and the rest of it. I mean, what, in your considered opinion, would be the proper approach to solve these two hydra-headed problems? The funding issue and also the high, corporate and personal tax, which, are charged by various tax regimes across Sub-Saharan Africa.
You agree with me that it is this high tax that has become a recipe for a lot of the corrupt practices you find within the companies that are investing here, and so they will rather look at ways to go around this. We in Ghana and in other countries are trying to attract investors, and so we put across incentives, some of which are tax related. Okay, so we will say that if you're a mining company for the next 5 years or the next 10 years, you won't pay so much, or you won't pay at all. We'll give you a concession of 5 years. Now, what has happened is that these same companies have a way, when it is time for them to pay taxes, the business changes hand.
They close up?
They close up. I mean, it is sold to a new person who then comes to continue the scheme. So over the years, even though we've given them 5 years, which we believe is enough for them to get their acts together, and then to begin making the nations benefit from it. What then happens is that sometimes our own institutions and persons are involved in this, and that this entity that is supposed to end the tax holiday of 5 years, somebody says transmogrifies into a new entity that is also now going to ask for, because he said, no, I'm just starting. I'm just starting, so I'm also entitled to that 5 year, and it goes on, and so on. So if the taxes themselves are brought within reasonable, it becomes an incentive for people to pay. Okay, other than looking for ways to go around it. So I believe that is what is increasing the incidence of tax evasion. Okay, tax evasion, which we find here, and unfortunately, you find some of the institutions that are supposed to be the guards assisting in this evasion and so on and so forth. So it will be an incentive for businesses to pay their taxes if, first of all, there must be some education, and it's important. It's important that people are given education, tax education on what is taxable, what is not taxable. Why do you, if you're operating a business, why are you registered your car in your personal name instead of the company name? Because you are using it for the company.
For the company anyway.
Okay, anyway. And then the premises where you own that as a personal property, but you are using it for the business. Why don't you do that in the name of the company and get some tax
rebates and benefits.
And benefits from that and so on. So that education is necessary as well.
Great. Let me take you back to fund mobilization. How do you think sub-Saharan African economies should go about the process of attracting lower priced capital?
Okay. It's it's a component of the element of risk. Okay. The businesses themselves and just even before there are alternatives. There are alternatives that can be looked at. We haven't done so well with leasing. We haven't done so well with things like tolling arrangement,
okay,
and so on and so forth. Those are alternatives to actually securing the actual credit. It's also a credit in a way, but it gives you certain leverages that are not. So, but we have this element of risk that goes to what the institutions should also be doing, because look at just the national addressing system, property addressing system of where companies are located. Mm-hmm. The visibility that if I give a facility to this business entity, the next time I come, it hasn't gone to some other location and I can't trace it. Okay, so a simple thing like street addressing, which will give comfort to people who are lending, is even non-existent in most of our countries.
So it makes credit to be high risk.
It's a high risk. So those are the things that are going against us having lower interest rates and so on and so forth, because they see simple things like that. And then, of course, equity is an option.
Okay.
But there are demands if you are borrowing, you are going for equity. Okay. Whoever is offering the equity wants transparency in the business.
Yeah.
What measurements are businesses doing?
Yeah.
The guy walks around with a checkbook in his pocket. Mm-hmm. Nobody writes invoices. There is no transparency.
Yeah.
So it is difficult for any equity investor to look at investing in a small business that has no transparency whatsoever. They are not measuring anything for you to see what is happening out there and so on. So we also have a duty to bring our enterprises up to speed in the way they run their management skills and sense of what is happening globally around them and so on, information and all of that. So the enterprises themselves must be supported to come up in the way they run the business. Best practices.
You know what I've just taken from what you've said now, Dunwell, is that the way to also decrease the cost of funds is to take pressure off the funds market itself by opening up avenues where private businesses can raise equity.
Yes.
And that in itself is capital that comes at zero cost.
Yes.
Except, of course, you pay dividends at the end of a period. And then going beyond that, you said something which I love so much, talking about the leasing option.
Yes.
If you either take a finance lease or an operating lease, whichever of it, gives you the space, the ambit to operate, whilst, using particular equipments and the rest of it, and then you pay over, a period of time, and whatever the lease arrangement is about, that is what you are there to. That is, a great way of reducing the pressure. But I think one thing I would also want us to speak to is how do we get the savers to also save at a lower cost? I mean, I'm asking an open-ended question. I can just imagine that it's a question without an answer, but I'm just making the attempt all the same. Yeah. How can savers, in our own financial systems, end up, saving at a lower cost, which will in turn give the banks and the financial institutions, the ambit or the opportunity to also give out credits at lower costs.
Yeah, it cut both ways. You're right that whilst we are going on and about the institutions that lend, that saving culture is also necessary in our environment, and we need to have schemes that make people aware the benefits there are if one encourages the saving habits and so on, which is non-existent now in Ghana. You find it's beginning for some way somehow. Some financial literacy is creeping up. People are even competing using piggy banks.
Yeah.
Okay, way down. And it has to start from the schools.
Yeah.
With our children to engender that idea that it is good to save and so on. So, but I know that a lot of people who are saving are looking for quick returns, and that is how come people have suffered from these crooked financial schemes that came up, virtually pyramids and things like that.
Right.
That almost toppled our financial institutions because people were looking for quick returns and so on. There has to be education to bring our people to the point that, look, it pays to do this, but it is something that you build over time. You can't do it overnight, and you put it in and you want it back. You don't gain from it. But I think that it's an education that should start with right from children in school through secondary school, and some countries have done it. There are examples we can follow from other countries how they've gone about the whole thing about financial literacy and the saving culture, that without which we cannot develop our financial institutions and then have the long-term capital that is needed. Elsewhere, people have made use of pension funds that are long-term.
Right.
Unfortunately, in our countries, the pension funds have become places for political football. They will put their cronies there who go and use that money for investment that doesn't yield anything.
Yeah.
Okay, and then elsewhere, the pension funds are the ones that are available for long-term investments and so on. So we need to come to terms with some of these things that is not auguring very well with us. But I will go for the heightening information on the benefits of saving, not just for people as individuals and businesses, but also nationally. It will help us.
Great. Viewers, we'll just take another short break and we'll be back with you shortly. Thank you. Viewers, you are welcome back to this very exciting series on the ease and challenges of doing business in Sub-Sahara Africa. It's been wonderful speaking with Mr. Dunwell Eku. He's giving us such great insights into the solutions to the problems we have doing business in Sub-Sahara Africa. I'm more interested in the solutions than the problems. And at Kukuza Africa, that's our mandate, to change the African narratives, to bring, to the fore, the good side, the possibilities, what's going to make Sub-Sahara Africa the destination of choice in the world in a very short time. So you're welcome to this concluding part, and we're going to be talking about two very crucial issues, electricity and infrastructure. I crave your indulgence. You allow me to read the ADB, that's the African Development Bank notice on their website. It says physical infrastructure across much of the continent is a challenge to productivity. According to the African Development Bank, it calculates an estimated $130 to $170 billion needs to be invested each year on Africa's infrastructure. despite a financing gap of as much as $108 billion. A lack of funding for roads, telecommunications, water, electricity, and more are impeding the continent's productivity by around 40%, according to World Bank estimates. This failure of critical infrastructure is a major risk to business in the region, respondents to the World Economic Forum survey said last year. Now, furthermore, it says the African Development Bank, the AFDB, estimates that there remains a $68 to $108 billion financing gap to meet Africa's infrastructure needs, which is estimated to be in the range of 130 to 170 billion, as we've said earlier on. So there should be a continued growth in project finance during 2019. That's in the preceding year. And it says lending from development finance institutions, the DFIs, continues to play a critical role in project finance across Sub-Sahara Africa, particularly in the infrastructure sector. Power projects will also be a key driver of project finance work on the continent. Today, an estimated 600 million people in Africa lack access to electricity. This power deficit on the continent coincides with the increasing interest and investment in renewable energy sources, in particular smaller scale power projects, due to the demand for less complex projects that can be implemented quickly. I'll be asking Mr. Eku at this point that how does this affect the rollout of projects, especially in the private sector, private sector driven projects in the subcontinent, and what possibly can be done to ameliorate this huge financing gap? We're looking at a huge financing gap, according to the African Development Bank, of not less than $108 billion per year.
All right. Yeah, very, very, very interesting. It is a Herculean one. No business, and especially now that we're talking about doing business across our borders, within the continent and the subcontinent, infrastructure is key. And but the capital that is required, as you rightly said, is not coming easy. But let me say that this is not new. There is also evidence that there are projects that is being funded, but the brand of politics that prevails in our countries are such that sometimes after the approval, this money sits, and then some of them are actually returned because we haven't gotten our acts together in how this project should be fully implemented and so on. You find examples of that. So there is this element, this political element there that sometimes makes it unattractive for people who want to invest in these infrastructure things. And then the demands that are placed on them for costs that they cannot even account for. Okay? I am an investor. I come into this country. I want to do some roads, build, operate, and transfer. BOTs. Okay. And those who are supposed to help me do this are making demands that I look at it, and it's a big hole in the budget, and I can't account for it. You know. So the element of corruption in our nations is such a disability. Okay, and a disincentive for people who genuinely want to come over and help us with capital to invest. Because the options are there. And these are projects that should ordinarily cut across the political era. So if a project is slated for 10 years and the investment has been put in there, why should one political era come and truncate that and frustrate the people who are investing? It's all over the place. Okay, so we've thrown things out there that is not making it attractive for people who even, because we in all our discussions, everybody knows about build, operate, and transfer. Why are we not getting that?
Yeah, so that essentially would have been an immediate stopgap.
Yes.
To fund projects
exactly
across Sub-Sahara Africa.
Exactly.
So why are we not getting those options?
Yes,
on a large basis. I know the new international airport in Durban is a BOT arrangement, and it's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
Very, very beautiful place. You know, I can imagine that if we had such more airports around Sub-Sahara Africa, it would, you know, actually ease, you know, movement and transportation of goods. Yeah. So why don't we have a proliferation of such interventions across?
Especially, okay, let me even talk about the electricity. The electricity, look at the numbers you mentioned.
Yes, 600 million
600
people,
million
according
people.
to the World Bank.
Okay, which means that
without electricity in Sub-Sahara Africa.
We need to stratify the needs, domestic needs, industrial needs, and so on, so that whoever is building any plant, whatever investment we're making, we're looking for returns. Okay, we're looking for returns. So if, especially for the industrial ones, if there isn't any indication of the kinds of industries that would take that power that is being supplied, whoever is putting in that investment will be hesitant. Okay. Yes, the domestic users are there in their high numbers, but you and I will agree that there is a difficulty in collecting the revenues.
Okay.
Okay. The systems that have existed for revenue collection and so on, somehow is outdated.
Yeah, they are obsolete.
Yes, some of them are beginning to introduce new systems, the prepaid systems and so on. That has taken, but hitherto it wasn't available, and they're looking at that. So one, we have to look at what industries would take up the electricity that will be generated.
Yeah.
We're just discussing the Grand Inga Dam, huge one in the Congo, about 40 to 50 gigawatts of power to be generated.
That would cost $80
billion.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, whoever is putting in $80 billion is looking at, okay, now the uptick, which industries will take up when we do this, and it has to be very clear from the onset that there is. You remember the Ghana's electricity, the Volta River Authority. We have the Volta Dam was successful because there was indication of an aluminium smelting plant that was going to take a huge portion of that generating ability.
Yeah.
Okay.
And pay for it.
And pay for it. Without that, there was no way the Kaisers and so on would have put their money into that project. Dam. Okay. They wouldn't have done that. So first and foremost, we need to map out our needs in terms of industry and domestic and other resources. But I agree with you that a mix of generating abilities is also necessary.
Yeah.
That we will look at the renewables, we look at the because of course there are, especially the domestic ones, there are places in Africa that it will be totally unproductive to extend electricity. It won't pay for itself.
Yeah.
The distances, the terrain, and so on. So those ones, there are specific power plant generating abilities that we need to, whether solar, whether
Even the compost.
small turbines.
Even
yes.
the compost.
Yes, waste to energy.
Yeah.
Waste to energy and so on. So we also have to have a mix to allow us. I went to in a seminar where the speaker immediately put across a histogram of tariffs across nations.
Yeah.
And this was Denmark. And when that thing was put up and everybody saw the tariffs we were paying in Ghana and across West Africa, it was like ours were way out of, everybody was like, ah! And then luckily there was somebody from the energy ministry who said, yeah, it is so because we don't have a mix.
Yeah.
We don't have a good mix. We are tied to just the hydro,
right,
and then the fossil fuel ones, just that. And so other places they are using solar, they are using wind, they are using even ocean waves,
right,
and then of course the nuclear one that is problematic, and all of that. So a mix in itself has a way of
reducing costs.
Cost. Okay.
Yeah. So,
but first and foremost, we need to stratify.
Yeah.
What do we need? Where is it going?
Yeah. So basically, what you are advocating is there should be policy in place to ensure that various areas use or have installed capacity for energy types and forms which are best suited for them.
Yes.
You know, at the lowest cost possible. So, I mean, there's no reason for a farm in the outbacks to expect electric power to be, drawn all the way to them when they can use the compost from their cattle,
livestock,
from their livestock, to build. What do you call that plant again?
Digesters.
Which can be used to generate electricity.
Biogas.
Biogas. That's the word. I've seen one of that nature at Cantamanso, which I know, worked very well. So, coming to talk about this huge infrastructure need, which boils down to financing, as determined by the AFDB, where they say that we need close to $108 billion to be able to do that successfully. On a yearly basis, but you have come up immediately with a very great option, which is, look, we don't need to always wait for money in the form that we know it, but we can do alternative financing. And alternative financing can also come in the form of concessionings, BOTs, and the rest of it. That is the build, operate, and transfer. And there are many companies around the world that will be very happy to come and have a stake in the economy, build certain systems, and take their monies over a period of time. I know that the Gatwick Airport in the UK is owned by a private individual, and I also, I think I've read somewhere that the Italian rail system is also owned by a private individual. So now, coming to think of it, why then is this not happening in this part of the world? And we're going to take that, as our final word, and then you can say something to the businesses in Sub-Sahara Africa. Why exactly? I mean, it's not like this is rocket science. It's these are well-known facts. Why are we not able to translate these to produce or put infrastructure in place that will help our local businesses? Because I can imagine, what local businesses go through because of lack of infrastructure.
It's a number of issues. Any investor will look at some stability in the region where they want to do this, because it's a long haul.
Is that what has stalled the Inga Dam?
The Inga Dam could well be, because DRC, the issue of instability in that place. Now, for anybody to put $80 billion in that place, only for some
which can be easily done,
rebel leader to just come and do something. Nobody would do that. So political stability of the nations is one
Crucial.
key requirement for anybody who wants to do
Right.
A BOT and so on, because
Right.
those things require time.
Right.
They are putting in the money, and over 20 years, they are collecting their revenues, or 10, 15 years, 20 years, collecting their revenues. And if the system of politics we operate is said that every 5 years somebody else comes, or every 10 years somebody comes and changes the whole thing and cancels, abrogates contracts and things like that, that is a recipe.
It's a disincentive
yes.
to investment
To
in our
investment
infrastructure.
yes, exactly.
So what we should be looking at in Sub-Saharan Africa today is some form of stable transition of power.
And it must be registered out there for everybody to know that this place is stable. I can go and do 20 years and get my money back. You know, without that, it will be, because debt is expensive. Debt, to just borrow, I mean, already we are up to our neck all over the place in debt.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's these alternatives that will relieve us, and but we are also saddled with these problems.
You know what, Dunwell? In very short words, you have proffered great solutions to the problems of Sub-Saharan Africa in infrastructure and in electricity, and these are two essentials that immediately impact on the output of businesses in Sub-Saharan Africa. And what you've said, basically, I will repeat again, is for electricity, you've talked about a required mix.
Yes.
And we should not all just depend on one source of energy.
Yeah.
Everybody should not depend on
hydro.
the hydro, for all the electric needs of the country.
Yes.
There should be a mix, and all these include so many various applications, of energy provision across, which are available to us today. So we need to investigate and see, how to apply every one of them in their respective areas. And then concerning our infrastructural deficit, you've talked about, doing alternative financing, not having to rely, on cash supply alone to be able to do some of these things. We should go into some form of, the BOT is another form of equity.
Yes,
it's another form of
yes.
equity arrangement,
Yes.
where, a foreign firm comes in and has equity in your country for a period of time, and after that, then they are able to, exit the thing. You've done, so wonderfully well in helping us throw light on, the ease and the challenges of doing business in Sub-Saharan Africa. And I think that there is great hope for the subcontinent, looking at it and taking it forward. But I just wanted to give a final word to, businesses, budding businesses. I know you are a business developer, and in your capacity as a trainer, I know you've done, quite a lot of enterprise development, right across Sub-Saharan Africa. And it would be wonderful to hear from you, as a fund manager, a skills development fund, international master trainer at UNCTAD, as a consultant, a speaker and management trainer of repute. I think Sub-Saharan African businesses want to hear from you, especially the young businesses, the budding businesses, about the way forward.
What I would say to this, and thank you for all the nice things said about me. I appreciate that. Just to say that in the times we are in, the key things that are running business, skills and technology and entrepreneurial acumen.
Great.
You cannot do away with that.
Right.
Okay. So it is important for young and budding entrepreneurs to upgrade their own skills. Okay, because if you have the skills and the entrepreneurial acumen, you'll be able to steer around what is happening in the environment.
Navigate the problems.
Exactly.
That's true.
Exactly, because as for the problems and the roadblocks, they will always be
there in one form or the other.
In one form or the other.
That's true.
So, but where you lack the entrepreneurial acumen and you lack the necessary skills, you won't be able to do the navigation. And so, just as I was talking about the almost everybody will be happy to have equity because that one, there isn't cost, as it were, and you have time to pay it, and so on. But equity demands that you, the person running the business, know what you are doing.
That's true.
And can paint a picture that gives confidence to the investor who is coming. Okay, so, and it has to do with the systems, systems you have in place, the management staff, the operational systems, and so on, that are standardized so as to give people the confidence when they look into your business. You know, you a business person comes to sit before you and say, oh, what was the last quarter like? And he's staring up. He has no idea what you're talking about. What? Yes, you've operated from January, February, March. What has it been like? And you can't tell anybody this. Who will put their money there? You should be able to put your thumb on what has happened. Okay, and then looking forward the next quarter, what you hope to achieve. These are things that you cannot run away from. So I would say to our budding entrepreneurs that systems, and upgrade of skills. And of course, the technologies that are around now, we should be knowledgeable enough to even apply them. And that will help all of us.
Wonderful. It's been great speaking with you, Mr. Dunwell Eku. And so viewers, especially the budding businesses, you've heard it all. Hope is not lost. In spite of all that, the bottlenecks you may have experienced in doing business across the 46 sub-Saharan African states, we still say on Kukuza Africa that we can change the African narratives. Having listened to Mr. Dunwell Eku today, I seem to believe that as budding businesses, existing businesses, increase or up their skills profiles, and then also take out time to pick up entrepreneurial skills also, it will help and go a very, very long way in ensuring that you navigate the very murky waters we find ourselves sometimes, to our El Dorados, as we want to say. So it's been great having you on this program, and we look forward to coming your way again with another incisive topic which will further assist your business growth and profile across the 46 sub-Saharan African states. Thank you very much. See you again.